Welcome, everyone, to Chat with a Grad. I am Chef Carrie Bonfido, the program manager for Bauman College. And as everyone here knows, Bauman College is dedicated to helping people find work they love through holistic nutrition as well as holistic culinary. So we have wonderful programs here where we uh, enable people to really just engage with food and feel how we can use the nature of food to heal ourselves. So if you don't know about our programs, please check them out. If you do know about our programs, please tell someone else about them because we love to share this information. We are so lucky today to be joined by an alumni, a former instructor and mentor to all of us, as well as many of our students, Chef Lizette Marx. Welcome, Lizette.
Great to be here. It's like a little mini reunion, I was saying, because I see so many familiar faces, people that I've worked with, I've loved to work with over the years. So thank you for inviting me.
Of course. Well, we're so glad you're taking this time. And I know that you've done so much in your career.
Yeah,
And can you just kind of tell us a little bit about maybe how you started, um,
sure.
and what that motivation was for you?
Okay, sure. Well, I've always had a lifelong love of cooking. That's always been kind of part of my DNA, if you will. And I also love to write. And so I actually came in to writing about food, writing about health and wellness through as a journalist. And this is like way back, after college. That's what I studied was journalism. And while I was there, I was working at a small bakery. I was kind of just enjoying being around food, learning about French baking and all these types of things. And it was actually using a starter that the owner had brought back from France and was, so I kind of got my chops that way, but I never really thought, oh, this will be the career. I was focused on the writing and went through that writing for Yoga Journal, numerous dailies, on and on until I realized that tech writing was really more lucrative when you had a young family. And so that was my background. And during that time, I went to Bauman College to study nutrition and culinary arts and kind of formalize everything. And I was so into the wellness aspect of it. I wanted to incorporate the nutrition. So that's where I started. And while I was there, we kind of, me and a friend started a cottage baking business and started baking specialty cakes for kids. And while I was in Bowman College, I realized I cannot make cakes like this my friend does because she was using all the bad stuff, all the white flour, all the white sugar. Oh my God, even Crisco. And I remember her recipe for frosting, and it was this, I shudder to think. I use that stuff, but then I thought, could we make, because I think a lot of moms would be interested, could we make some more just healthier cakes? Cakes without the white sugar, without the white flour. And this was like right around the mid 90s. Okay, this was a while back that I was doing this, and I kept doing it while I was going to Bowman College. So I had been doing this for a while. And so I started experimenting with different things. I started doing first just organic, good quality ingredients, good quality butter, sugar. Then I thought, oh, what if I do gluten-free? Because I got one client who said, do you do anything without gluten? And I'm like, well, I don't know. So I did a little research and I learned how to do that. I just taught myself and created recipes. Then I went grain-free and then it just went like that. And I became that specialty baker. And so that's how I got my start at Bowman College being the instructor because right around the time I was graduating, I was helping Bowman with my editing and writing background with all of their materials, all of their written materials. They were trying to consolidate everything, make it all match. Because back in the olden days, and I know Mira remembers this, everything was a hodgepodge. All our materials were just sourced from all different places, and it was all good material, but it was a bit of a hodgepodge. And as students, we had to kind of sift through everything. And I mean, we learned a lot, but they wanted to make everything look really professional. So I was in that era. And then I was hired to be the baking instructor because I had all this background just working on the field. And by the way, the business was called Patty Cakes. And I was very busy where I lived. I mean, I made cakes. We made quite a few cakes every week. And so I was pretty busy. And with kids, it was a great schedule. So then I became the baking instructor. And from there, they found out I had more cooking background and just not just baking, but other, I was doing some catering. And, when you do baking, sometimes things expand. Like, can you also cook like the finger foods? Can you make other things? And that's where the catering kind of blossomed. It became our business became more than just baking. At that point, I left patty cakes and my husband and I started our own business called Kitchen Treasures. And that's when we did catering. And
So this was a very kind of organic process.
very much, very much. And then inspired the sort of our mission, our goals around our business was very much inspired by what was taught to us by Bauman College. So we had this idea to not compromise on the ingredients. And also, when we cooked for people, we didn't want to use paper products to store the food. So we use, everything from glass jars to, you know, oven to table, kind of like what am I thinking of? It's like Pyrex, things like that that the families could use. They'd wash it up, they'd have it ready for us the next week. And we got a lot of regular clients. We were pretty busy doing the personal chef. And then occasionally we'd do catering and then there'd be wedding cakes because I also did wedding cakes. So all of this occurred and expanded mainly because I kept saying yes. I didn't say no much back then. I was younger, my kids were younger. I wanted the experience. And one of the things when I look back on that portion of my career, and by this time I was also teaching at Bowman, three classes a week when we were in the brick and mortar. I taught at two different locations there in Berkeley. The bigger location that was on University Avenue, but before that, a smaller location in Gilman. And so I was really busy doing catering, teaching, developing recipes for the school. And then I kind of put back my writing hat because Dr. Bowman wanted me to help him revamp this book he had called The Flavors of Health. Actually, it wasn't called Flavors of Health. It was like an eating for health. I forget what it was called now, but it was Eating for Health something or other. Mary, you might remember, but it was a booklet. And he said, Lizette, I'd like you to take a look at this. Could we make this into a bigger book? And remember, I had a publishing background. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And so I kind of went through every recipe and I said, we need more of this, less of this. This is a little out of date, and kind of created a skeleton sort of outline of what we needed, what was missing, and what was there that was good, and what was there that was good but maybe needed an update, right? And then because you're working in a school, which is so wonderful when you work in a school, we gave the students a great externship opportunity to come in and recipe test. And I mean, every week we held a cook day. I had like 5 recipes to test with a kind of like feedback sheet. What do we think? How does it taste? Is the recipe easy? And then, it just went like that until we literally had, hundreds of recipes. And then, as many of you may have seen this book, it ended up being that.
That
Okay.
that's how I got to know you was through that
Yeah.
book.
It took 2 years to make this book, and all the photos they were actually, most of them were photographed at my house and in my backyard and using natural light. Those are my hands. They're a little older now, but there they are.
And
And
you're on the back, aren't you? Are
I
you on the
am
back?
on the back, and I don't normally wear my hair straight, but I guess I went to a salon and that's what they did. And I'm like, okay, that was that. And yeah, and my kids were in there. My husband has a photograph in there Oh, and that's another thing we did. Remember, I said yes a lot back then. We also, my husband and I, we were chefs, the lead chefs at the Vitality fasting retreats. And I've had people joke with me, well, what the heck are you cooking at a fasting retreat? Well, juicing and brothing. So some of you may have learned how to make the mineral broth at Bauman College. We have many varieties of mineral broth. Just I could probably write a book on just the mineral broth varieties that we created while we were doing the Vitality fasting retreats because there were many different, we calibrated it differently. We, depending on what we had, we made one that was more like a borscht. We made another one that was like a corn silk, kind of a detoxing broth that was absolutely delicious with the corn silk and the corn cob. Really good for urinary tract health, by the way. And so, and then we would break the fast. And so when you break the fast, you got to eat. So we made basically a vegan feast for people to start to break the fast at the end of it. And most of those fasts were 4 to 7 days. There was one for 4 days in the spring, and then in the summer, there was a 7 day. And we were fasting too, the whole staff. We fasted too, get there 2 days early. So we were there longer, just so you can get over the initial, there's a little bit of a detox moment. You hit the wall, you get really tired, you get a headache. So we started early so that we were ready for the participants and we were able to guide them and everything. And I know I'm talking a lot about culinary. I was also, a nutrition consultant. So I had clients, I saw clients. My main focus was women and children's health. And I worked with a lot of women with postpartum depression and did a lot of prenatal health and infant toddler first foods, things like that. And I led a weekly support group at a birthing center. Uh, and I'm looking back while I'm telling you this, I'm like, how did I fit all this in?
I think all of us are thinking the same thing. How did you fit it all in?
Uh, it was here's something that I told myself. Like I did years and years of working, as I call it, in cubes. I know some of you have worked in offices and you get to a point. I remember working for Safeway Corp before I started at Bowman, and it paid the bills. And I was doing technical writing there. And I remember walking up and down the hallway, just this walls of cubes. And you do that just to get up so you could just have something else to do because sometimes you just be like, oh my God, I have to walk somewhere. Okay, I'll go to the break room. Okay, I'll walk outside for a moment. Just anything to break up the day. And I remember my supervisor said, you're not going to go to heaven with this job because basically I was writing all the content to outsource people to outsource the work to the Philippines. So it was pretty depressing. And in that moment, I realized I never want to work in one of these places again. I never want to do work that I don't love. I want to do work I love. How can I make this happen? And then Bowman came.
That's powerful, right? To
Yeah.
have that to be at that point and you're really feeling that and you're really reflecting on that.
Yeah, it was. And my kids were in grade school. I was trying to figure out how to, they were going to a Waldorf school, and I was really trying to figure out how, as a busy mom, can I afford to step away from corporate and actually dive straight in and do this work that I've been just moonlighting for all these years. So I cut the cord. I left Safeway, and I kind of found a position at the school where they were working. Guess what I did? I taught culinary to the high school students, and I made it a culinary nutrition kind of format. And so I found a little place there, and I worked on their newsletter, and I worked at Bowman, and I was busy. Like I said, I was busy. And where did I fit it all in? I mean, you look at your life, you look at your workday. Bowman College teaching there wasn't full time, right? So you'd be there maybe 5 hours, 4 hours, and then you just find your time. You weave it in. On the weekends, you might do some catering. And my support group was in the evenings. So I found a way to weave it on in, and you have to have a pretty good calendar to get that to happen, right? And that's how I did it. And and I loved it. I loved every moment of the work that I did. Everything I did had relevance to what I wanted to kind of I don't want to say leave behind, but it's just more, it just really resonated with how I wanted to live my life. And I wanted to share what I had learned at Bauman College, what I had learned at other seminars, because once you finish Bauman College, and Mira, again, I'm going to point to you because once you finish a nutrition program, anyone who's done that, you start, at least I did, become a seminar junkie. You go to all the seminars that are out there with different supplement companies. The ones we went to were mainly with Standard Process and MediHerb and Designs for Health. And gosh, I mean, that was fun, just learning so much about metabolic health, about herbs, about how to actually use these in a way that's you can use them as food. That was my interest. Not how many different supplements can you take, but how can you use the power of food to actually increase health and wellness and resilience. And I talk a lot about now about resilience because over the years, like right around COVID, I came back to Bowman. There was a brief moment where I left Bowman and I had partnered with Kaiser Permanente because that was one other thing I did. I had a doctor who reached out to me wanting to know if I could design a program for their physicians. It was called the Physician Wellness Program. And what she was trying to do was initially was create a cooking program in the diabetes clinic, but she couldn't get the buy-in from the physicians. They're like, it'll never work. Just put him on metformin, right? She goes, I think we need to teach the doctors. And I credit her with like having that light bulb moment, right? And so I started doing demos right on site at Kaiser, all the Kaisers in my area. It's about seven of locations. I drive around, do a food demo right around lunchtime, and talk about, have different themes around it. Sometimes it was more of a grain-free approach or something to help, that was a lower glycemic, or sometimes it was get more fiber in your diet. We'd make salads. And then we would once a month have dinners at another kitchen, a community kitchen, and we would have dinner with the doctor. And the fun thing I did here was instead of just having them come over and do a cooking class, I invited the doctor who wanted to host it. So what Kaiser would do is have one doctor from one department host it. And I would talk to him and I said, okay, we're going to do a demo together, kind of like a cooking show, and you have a guest. And do you have anything? Yeah, and I would invite them. I said, do you have anything you want to share? Because a lot of them, the ones that volunteered, they like to cook. And they're like, yeah, I remember this one doctor saying, I have this lentil salad I always go to. And he got the lentils that were pre-cooked at Trader Joe's. And I did want it to make it accessible. So I said, yes, let's show your recipe. We'll feature it. And then I'll build a menu around it. And so he would do a demo. I'd help him with some things and I'd talk to him and ask him questions. And then we would make the rest of the meal and everyone just split up. And that was super fun. That was a super fun and very popular program. And I did it for about up until COVID. I did it for about 7 years. Then COVID hit. Everything changed, as we know.
Right.
And my business changed from Kitchen Treasures to Marx Culinary, and we just started doing everything online. And I came back to Bowman, and we created the new iteration of Bowman College that we are in today, and created the culinary program. And I know there was a team reinventing the nutrition program, even though there was a distance learning and things like that was part of the nutrition educator and consultant program, but not for culinary. It's like, how do you do online for culinary? And I mean, right?
Right. Yes. And so but we are doing it and it is working,
Yeah,
and you've seen it yourself how people can make that transition, and we can do it.
we
What I'm
can.
hearing from you, like part of your success, and tell me if I'm hearing this right,
That's fine. Yeah, go
is
ahead.
that you were so engaged with people that they just kept feeding you more people. It was like you were willing to share and just create those conversations, create those moments with people, and then it just started to blossom kind of on its
Yeah,
own, right?
it
Was that
really, yeah.
scary for you to do that?
At first, like when I was first asked to teach baking class for Bowman. I'm incredibly introverted, and some people are like, "How? What?" But remember, I'm a writer, and I like to cook. Those of us who cook like to be in the back. You don't want to be in the front, right? You want to be in the back of the house. And if I'm writing, you're alone. And so actually putting myself out there to teach, I didn't really think I had a voice for it. I didn't think I really had the presence for it. And so I remember when I was first teaching at Bauman College, on my way to work, I, put it on speakerphone, of course, and I would talk to my husband, who's a really amazing nutrition consultant. He did more of the clinical route. And I would just talk to him on the way and say, okay, I got this class to teach. Oh my God, I'm teaching now it's, blood sugar wellness. What am I going to do? How am I going to start? And I would literally talk to him on the way to work to try and get my bearings because I was so nervous. And then by the time I got there, I had all these notes and I'm an avid note taker. I'd write out everything I was going to say. I had my PowerPoints all set up. And then I don't know, something would happen when I was in front of people. In front of people teaching something that was so meaningful to me. And this is key. It was meaningful to me to share this information. And it wasn't necessarily my idea. I was saying things that were from many different experts and sages, the sage advice of Ed Bowman, Dr. Bowman, and I felt supported by all those resources. And then it would just come out. And it was just like this, it was like sometimes at the end of a class, I'm like, I got good feedback and I'd be like, wow, how did that happen? Or what did I just say? And so I know as the teachers in this room, I think you know what I'm talking about. Sometimes you just have these moments. It's like this, you enter a different place to just serve the students that are in front of you. It's not about you anymore, right? So all the nerves and everything about like how many ums and uhs am I going to say? We do that to ourselves. We're really mean to ourselves. And at first you might be that way because you're trying to find your words. But eventually, if you really stay present with your students or your audience and you see that room, you're right there with them. And then all the kind of hiccups that go along the way, just be real. Hiccups happen, right?
Well, I know that your teaching style and like your just warmth that you bring to it is really incredible. And one of your PowerPoints, I think it's in the Eating for Health module in the first course, is still there. So
Oh, I'm
students who
flattered.
are
Thank you.
here, if you have listened to that, that's Chef Lizette explaining Eating for Health, and it's really just well explained, as you
Thank you.
take the time to really look, to listen, and to explain things in a way that makes sense to people, right? Because I think you've had the experience talking with so many people and teaching the same thing over and over. I think as instructors, you think you're going to get bored. Like there's this idea of like, oh, I'm going to get bored teaching the same thing. But I don't know if it's like this for you, but I don't get bored saying the same thing over and over because I feel like it's reminding myself because I look at my lesson plans and I'm like, I wrote that? I don't remember that. Do you ever feel like there's so much that you could never get bored saying it again and again?
Absolutely. And the thing is, every cohort, right, is a different set of questions. People process things differently. I am different that day. And so you can pull from like what's happening in the moment sometimes, or from the questions. Like if teaching is to me, it's not just you're just outputting information to people. You could do it that way. It's a conversation though. You're sharing, you're listening, they're asking questions, things come up. I mean, you still need to stay on course, right? But you don't want to ignore those new things that come in. And I'll tell you something I really learned from someone, which can take you out of that place. I had a student once who sat in the very back of the class, and he had a different kind of textbook or resource, and he had it in his hand. He was from India. His name was Anil. And it took me a while to kind of reach him. because he was more kind of, you know what he was? I would teach and then he would argue. Because, as we know with nutrition, there's always another side. It's controversial. And so he had his opinion and he would quote someone and, well, what do you think about that? So it was a little combative and it really was disarming me. It was like, oh my gosh, this guy, he's just a thorn in my day. It's like, how do I deal with this person? Because then it would make everyone else question, and it brought up any insecurity that I would have. And my husband say, I think I know what you need to do with him. And he's because I didn't know how to deal with it, right? He said, kill him with kindness. Just be kind. Let him ask. Listen if you know it, answer it. If you don't, I'm not sure. It's another, there are viewpoints all around. We can talk more about it afterwards. And I got really skillful in being able to say, I want to hear what you have to say, but right now, let's do it after so that I can finish what I'm doing right now, right?
Yes.
I'm going to put a pin in that for you, but I'm going to get back to you, and I always did. Even if I didn't know, I'd find out. And he became like one of my best students and had so much gratitude at the end of the program for the fact that I listened, that I didn't argue with him, that I didn't shut him down because he was a little disruptive. But he learned himself to be less disruptive and more like, okay, I have questions. And sometimes he'd write them down and then talk to me after class. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. But boy, did we learn as teachers so much from our students if we stay open to it and not feel threatened. And the same thing has to do with customers that you have. I'll say this the same with customers. Catering clients that I've had that have been a little difficult. And don't let that beat you down. Learn from it. Because sometimes if you get defensive, you block yourself from learning something from that person. Like, was what I gave them or how we set it up, where was the miscommunication here? And because you really, I don't know, I can't say enough of that, about being humble, no matter what your expertise will allow you to learn.
That's wonderful. That's really, really good advice. Can
Yeah,
can I shift gears? Because
sure.
I've heard you mention your husband a couple times,
I
and
have, yeah.
right. And so he's one of the people that you definitely partnered with in
Yes.
your businesses. And
Yeah.
you mentioned Dr. Bowman and these doctors. Can you talk about how you decided to partner with somebody, what you think that if that was a good idea or a bad idea, and what that really helped you to do?
Well, it was a great idea because one, many hands make light work. Okay. Don't feel I have the personality of thinking I can do everything myself. Even when I'm working with other people, I might take on more than I should, and then I get pretty frazzled. Working with my husband was wonderful, and we were very lucky that we love to cook together, we love to present together, and it's been a great experience. And working with Dr. Bowman I mean, I consider him one of my greatest mentors. And he's always been and still to this day open to giving people a chance and to find a way to get themselves out there and share this work. And I'm always going to be grateful for that. And so I got a lot of opportunities from him, and that helped build my confidence in this industry, making me feel, really that I had something to offer. And collaboration is a wonderful thing because then you don't feel so alone. And it does help with networking. Okay, so you collaborate with one person, like Ed Bowman, or maybe the doctor that I collaborated with at Kaiser, and it leads to something else. And eventually, there's this thing that we used to call when I did tech writing, it was called a subject matter expert or SME. And I talked and worked with a lot of SMEs in my life about things that I knew nothing about, like nuclear waste management. That's back in my tech writing days. And even with a subject I knew nothing about or cared about or just was really afraid of, I learned so much from these people. And I learned so much about just as a journalist asking lots of questions. So I think all those past experiences helped inform, and helped guide me to where I am today and how I sort of view the work that I do. Um, I feel more now, I don't cater anymore. I've hung up some hats. I've sort of whittled things down for a lot of reasons. Um, One of them was for health reasons. We get older. I had a health challenge a couple years ago, which led me to leave Bowman, and um, I'm better now. I'm healthy, I'm vibrant, and I've got my energy back. But I did hang up those hats and was a little bit on hiatus. Uh, and that was a really important time for me because, like as I said, I was very busy. I said yes to everything, and then I entered a time in my life where I had to say no to everything. And there are times when you have to do that. And it's a very, I don't know, there's something really powerful about honoring your well-being, especially in this work. We're talking about being personal chefs, private chefs, catering and cooking for others, being a consultant, taking care of others. There's this whole thing about care for the caregiver. And when I worked at Kaiser, we did a lot of that care for the caregiver. And not just with food. I am a yoga instructor and a yoga therapist. I used yoga also to do those things and meditation. And then it had to turn back around toward me. And I'd never known what it was like to receive like that. And now I feel, now that I'm on the other side of it, I have a different perspective on what it means to be a holistic chef, to be a leader in this work, and to inspire. Um, One of the hats that I do continue wearing is recipe development and teaching cooking classes and mindful cooking, and of course the yoga. So that's what I continue. And I wanted to share with you this book that just came out like less than a year ago. It's a funny title, okay? But one of the things I do is I do professional recipe development. And I've been doing this for a while, and I every now and then you like hope to get there's a term here, right? Some of you may know it. You hope in private chefing or personal chefing that you can find a whale, like someone who can really afford you, right? Because we're not cheap. So that you can also do the work that's really meaningful, like maybe you're working in volunteer or you're teaching kids at school places where they can't afford you. But if you have some customers that can afford to pay the higher rate, that whale is important. And I found one with recipe development too, and that's this best-selling author. Her name is Connie Bennett. Okay. And she wrote a book. She's written many books. Her first book was called Sugar Shock, and we actually had it on our shelves at Bauman College at the brick and mortar building. I remember seeing it. And I actually, how I found her, I didn't seek her out. She sought me out because I kept throwing my hat in the ring, right? And I missed a conference at a place called Mindshare. Some of you may know about it. I didn't go. Yeah. But a few people I knew went, and she was there. And she said, I'm looking for a chef who can help me create some recipes for my book. I need her to create recipes and a meal plan, et cetera, et cetera. And that person dropped my name and she called me. And my husband and I collaborated on this and we put 45 recipes in here. And here's something that I've learned about writing. Keep your byline, everyone. I know there's ghostwriters out there. There are a lot of chefs who write recipes for celebrities, doctors, physicians, and they don't have their name anywhere. And as a journalist, as someone who has written and has bylines, that's important to me. So we negotiated. I wanted my name in this book. And she tried to fit it on the cover, but she couldn't for design reasons. But it's in there. If you go in the back, the most important part of the book is the meal plan, right? And so we are credited, both Geoff and I, and we have our meal plan, grocery lists, and all those recipes. And every single recipe it's a modified keto program, no added polyol sugars or any of that junk, none of that stuff. And she really wanted to, and it took like 7 years for this book to finally come out. It was crazy. But I just can't believe I'm holding an actual physical book because I've been staring at this thing for years and retuning those recipes and recalibrating. And I have to say, if you love to cook and you love to create recipes, recipe development, it's a great niche. Yeah.
That's wonderful. And so just so we can, I know it was a little blurry. It's called I
Oh,
Blew My Diet and Now
I
What?
blew my diet. Now what?
By Connie Bennett. So if you're looking for
Connie
that,
Bennett.
those are Chef Lizette and Chef Geoff Marx
Yeah.
recipes in that book. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
all the recipes are in there. And it's like it takes up a lot of space in the back. It has shopping lists and meal plans. That's probably where it starts. And then the rest of this is all recipes. And they're really good, by the way. I make them a lot. But yeah, of
well, wonderful. Well, I want to save some time for
course.
students and staff to ask questions
Okay.
because there's Lizette is a wealth of knowledge in so many areas. She's had so much experience. So I am going to open it up to anybody. Just raise your hand if you have a question.
Yes, Michelle.
We have a couple of students in the business course right now that I know are very interested in cooking for athletes. And I know that you had a little bit
Oh,
of
yes.
experience with that as well. So I was wondering if you'd be
It's
willing
like,
to
thank you
share.
for jogging my memory. Like I said, I did a lot of stuff. I worked. And what I love about this holistic chefing is that you can do so many crazy, wonderful things. Like so many, I really believe in projects and just keep saying yes, right? So the one that Chef Michelle is referring to is we did for about 5 months. We were hired to cook for the NFL Combine. So remember, I did a lot of personal chefing. So one of the gigs I had was cooking for them. We cooked 4 days a week, and it was like making food for 80 people. There were about 12 of them, something like that. And they were so big boys, really big guys. And we had to calibrate the food to suit their caloric needs. And we're talking like, this guy needs 10,000 calories a day. This one needs 11 because, and so it depending on, what their position was, their level of fitness. I mean, all of them were very fit, but some of them were bigger than others. But anyway, we did things like making meatloaf, really good grass-fed meatloaf, wrapped in bacon and shaped like footballs for each guy. And that was dinner. We also made lunch. So we made 2 meals a day. And we worked in the coach's kitchen. So we weren't even in a professional kitchen. It was personal chefing on steroids. It was insane. And we'd get there every morning at 7 a.m. And then we'd take over the kitchen. Mom and the kids would leave. And, we just cooked up a storm. And then the assistant coaches would come over and help us distribute it to the to the athletes. And then occasionally, like I'd give them treats that were really helpful. Like we made panna cotta with grass-fed gelatin, or I made things, put turmeric in things, and just kind of tried to give them exposure to different types of treats and foods that would have like an anti-inflammatory effect or something like that, and also be fun. And yeah, that was a lot of work. Cooking 4 days a week. Fridays we'd shop every week and then fill up that fridge. And then come Monday, there we were. Yeah, that was great.
That sounds like an adventure and definitely just a getting to know a whole different way of cooking, right? And like you were
Well,
saying,
yeah, I mean, it was really like sports nutrition, really specific. And we worked with the coach who really knew what the caloric needs and the macros. So talk a lot about macros, what each athlete needed. And then we also calibrated some things to certain, like, oh, he has issues with dairy or gluten. Not everyone, and some of them wanted it. And so you'd have to kind of like set things aside and do something in a certain way. So it was a lot of hard work. I had to put my I had to take a little brief break from our personal chefs. Like, we're going to be gone for like this chunk of time. We gave him some recipe ideas and things like that. And, meal plan, like some of my regular clients, they were fine with it. But it was an experience I just didn't want to turn down. So that
Right.
was fun. It was fun.
Any other questions?
Yeah, any questions, please? Maritza, are you asking? Yeah, I think you need to unmute.
I
There you
cannot
go.
find the raise your hand
I
button.
know. That's okay. Yeah, this one works.
I am super impressed and I'm very happy to meet you because I obviously for the past year I've seen many of your videos.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh,
you're always so calm and poised and wonderful the way that you explained everything.
thank you.
Yeah, so it's a real treat. One of the things that I like to do is work with medical professionals to help them kind of teach their patients how to start doing whatever diet they need to be doing.
Hmm.
And I'm wondering if you have any ideas as to how to go about it.
Yes.
I do go to many doctors also because of health reasons, but they are all spaced out. So
Yeah.
how do you go about it, and who do you like? Do you have any ideas, any light
Yeah.
that I can maybe benefit from?
Well, you start with just if it's your own doctors. A lot
Right.
of times, what I have done is you have that normal, like, what do you do? Tell them what you do.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
And then tell them that you're always looking to, for new opportunities. I did this with one a dermatologist, and then she referred me to other people. Like, doctors don't have time to
Hmm.
teach cooking, even if they know how to cook, but they do have time to refer, and
Hmm.
they can, if you have those conversations with anyone who's interested, like this dermatologist, I remember she was so interested in nutrition and cooking and making food first sort of rather decisions rather than just relying on supplements. And so she'd always ask me, so what are you working on now? And why don't you give me some of your cards back then when we used business cards? And I will send them, I'll share them. And sometimes you get work, sometimes you don't hear anything. But if you keep doing that, eventually you will start becoming known. So I used to go to medical offices like GPs, general practitioners. Chiropractors are usually good because they are very aligned with nutrition. Not all general
Hmm.
practitioners are. But you put
Hmm.
back in the day when we used to use flyers and things like that, sometimes those still work. You can just
I
talk to
see.
people and have the conversation. Another thing that you can do is you can go to say, I know another chef, I know it's a former student. She used to go to a physical therapy clinic and she used to give a talk once a month and a demo. And here's the thing about food, people love to eat, they love samples. So do demos. Do demos. That'll
Hmm.
get your foot in the door and you offer something yummy and delicious. There's an Ayurvedic clinic near me and she's asking me, I don't have time right now, but she said, eventually I will probably do it. You want to do a demo? You want to come out and then I'll have some people come over and it's great because you're creating community and
Right.
it's not high pressure really. You
Hmm.
talk about what you do without being too salesy. The food does it,
Hmm.
right? If it's
Hmm.
good
Hmm.
and they try it or if they see in the demo is dynamic and you get people interested
And in
right
the
there.
demo, you would bring like all your little stove, little what do
Yeah.
you call it? The small the
Yeah,
um
so an induction burner
an
or
induction. Uh-huh.
yeah, induction's better. Don't do propane. You get in trouble for that, just so you know.
Yeah.
I
I
learned.
guess the insurance
Yeah, that's an insurance issue. I
liability.
did it once and I'm like, oh, this was a bad idea. And also, if you have an induction burner, make sure your pots work on that induction burner.
Yeah.
Learned that one
Yeah.
too. Husband
Yes.
had to go down the street and we got a new, I keep looking at this pot he had to get because the one we brought didn't work. I didn't think about that. Duh. But life happens. Make sure you have all your ingredients and be
Yeah,
flexible because sometimes you might not bring
things
something. You got
happen.
to work around
Yeah,
it. Don't
yeah,
let it
yeah,
don't let it throw you too much.
yeah.
It happens.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Thank you
I
so
would say do
much.
demos, Melissa. Yeah,
Okay. Thank you.
of course. Anyone else have a thought? Caitlin,
Hi, thank you so much for being here and sharing all your wisdom.
of
My
course.
question was just curiosity around what kinds of topics you did for demos that landed really well. What were people interested in?
Mm. Well, in at Kaiser, people loved things that were relevant to their life. They're busy, so they loved anything that was salad that's a meal or a one pot meal or something really easy to put together after work or prepare for themselves so they could bring it. It was really about them, right? And that's how you really build interest is make sure that you make these relevant to the people that are watching you. Because if you make it a little, even if they have, even if they work with people that have health issues, if it's too much about that for the physicians, sometimes you gotta, that's how I kind of got them to keep calling me back. And then I would bring a special topic and say, I was thinking, and you tell them ahead of time, of doing a demo that would support people with, leaky gut. And, many of them know about that, right? And they were like maybe for the gastroenterologist department, the GI department, and they'd go, "Yeah, we love that." And actually, guess what? Some of those docs are having those issues too. So they don't say it. It's like, I have a friend who has an issue, right? And and then you start to be able to tailor your demo to kind of support that condition. But whenever you're doing a demo, one thing that I've taught students in the past, when they do demos about a health condition, really make it about the food. Don't get overly sciencey. You're going to bore people, okay? I hate to say that. If you get too detailed about that in your presentation, you got to pick like maybe up tops three takeaways and make those takeaways about food. Like if someone has GERD, give them some solutions that are food based, right? Maybe describe what it is. Make your handout more robust if you have more technical information you want to share, but and always remember, uh, you're not the doctor. You might not have the credentials to remember we don't prescribe. We hardly, I mean, even recommendations are kind of dicey, but you support. And so if you keep it about that, that's interesting to people. And that is helpful without having to be like, because people can read a book or read a study, but you can point to those books and point to those studies and you can attribute them. Always make sure you attribute. Okay. So that's what I would say if you want to get a little more like that. Okay. Yes, Emily.
Hi, Lizette. Oh my gosh, it's just
Yes.
so cool to hear about your story. I've heard bits and pieces over the years, but just to hear that laid out, I'm always in awe of you and what you've done. And I don't know, I had a couple questions and I was trying to formulate what they were. But you talked a lot about saying yes to so many things in this journey. And I guess my question is, for people who are getting started, right? People who are new to this career, what advice do you have around, saying yes, maybe having some boundaries, but saying yes, and also really tapping into, you talked about like resonance, like how, like really kind of getting a sense of what resonates with you. So can you just kind of maybe give some advice about, how you would recommend people go about that as they're getting their career started?
Yes. Number one, if you really believe that, like what you've learned here at Bowman, and you really want to be a holistic chef, don't compromise. You will have clients that want you to take shortcuts, don't take those shortcuts. Be true to yourself. Okay. If you don't want to use erythritol, don't use erythritol. Okay. If you don't want to buy commercial like Tyson chicken, don't and state it in like this is what I do and this is why it's higher. Okay. You want to, you let them know that it's the high quality ingredients. Some people do not care, and those people are not your clients. Okay. And you will, I can't tell you how miserable it can be to try and teach someone who doesn't care. Some people just don't care. And that's okay. That's okay. Don't judge. It's just that's not your person. Okay. So do make sure of that. I have counseled students and actually have mentored students to help them build careers out of this and not just cook for people for free. Do not give your work away or your knowledge away. What you know is so, so valuable. It is so valuable. So don't get tempted to take people that really don't want to pay for your services just for the experience because again, that builds a very kind of almost toxic situation for yourself and for them. I used to put my hat out there in this, I don't even know if this app exists anymore. It's called Thumbtack as a personal chef, and I get all kinds of inquiries. And then some people would say, I would meet with people and talk to them. I remember meeting with this mom, and she was really busy. She was from Danville, and if anyone knows, it's a very affluent area. And we met for coffee and we talked about my services and what I charge. And she said, can you charge less? She was really wanted to undercut me by 50%. And I said, no, I cannot. Because this is why. Well, can you just, again, here we go back to this. Can you just get all the food at Safeway instead of, or can you just not do organic? And I said, well, that's not how I work. But, and sometimes I'd say you can find other services, if you need that. And I know you're a busy mom. I wouldn't just turn people down because sometimes I would say, well, here's another thought. Maybe I could just help you give you a boost. So some things are easier, like you could just buy broth for me, or maybe just let's try one meal a week, or we could have like a one-on-one and I can show you how to save time. Different things. So you don't all, it doesn't mean the relationship, it's like it's a no-go. Sometimes you can find a different way that's more affordable for them. And I've never tried this, but I bet you, just like new parents share a nanny, they could also share a chef. And so that'd be a cool idea. I never went there, but I always thought about it, and I just didn't ever have that, that didn't come through in my work life. Uh, but don't sell yourself short. Catering's really it's really easy to take a catering job and charge less than what the market will bear just to get the job. Don't do that too many times. You might want to do it to get the experience, but don't make a habit of doing the $10 a head catering job because that's just miserable. You work so hard and you make nothing, and you might not even be able to pay for the food you purchased or even your travel costs. So do your math. You get a third. I think that still applies, right? You get a third, and a third goes to your costs, right? So remember that rule and make sure you get paid. Because if you undercut yourself, you send a message to the entire industry that we're not worth it. And you got to remember that. And that has with anything, you went to school to learn this. You've studied, you've worked hard, you've done your externship. So get paid.
Wonderful. Yes, absolutely. I love that advice. And we really take that to heart.
Yeah.
My gosh, Lizette, I think this is a good place for us to stop. I know that you're online at marxculinary.com.
I am. You can reach me there. I am going through a shift with my business in that I have another website. It's lizettemarx.com. It's not fully built. I mean, you can go there and find out about my yoga classes. I teach two online right now. And like I said, I'm getting back in the game a little bit. And so things are shifting and changing a little so that I can kind of create this new offering that I have. So there will be some mindful-based cooking classes that include yoga, that include help specific things like cooking for cancer. So you will see those things come up. And but of course, if you have questions about your own career, what you want to do, I'm always open to speak to students because I love to talk about this, and I'm wishing the best for each and every one of you in whatever path you take.
Thank you so much. A big round of applause for Chef Lizette. Thank you so much for being here and
Thank
for
you.
sharing all of
Oh, it
your
was a pleasure.
experience and for building the program. I think we owe you a heartfelt thank you for
Thank you so
being
much.
there and to be, like you said, being a leader in this space.
Well, it has been an honor, and I miss it all right now, but it's just so nice to be back. And just like I said, it's just to be able to speak with my fellow colleagues, my past colleagues, and new students and new faces. So I'm honored. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. All right, we're gonna whoosh. We'll do our whoosh to say goodbye. 1, 2, 3, whoosh. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, Lizette.
Great to
Thank
see
you.
you.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. I can't
Bye.